Hey everyone, I found another game between Stockfish and Leela. AlphaZero simulation match once again with 10 minutes each, 5-second increment. But this time we're going to look at it from Stockfish's perspective, who was playing white in this game, and Leela was playing black. The opening book for this was actually a French defence. So Stockfish began with 1e4, there was e6, d4, d5, knight c3, bishop b4, and then e5 and c5, and we're into a French already. This time in the book, a3 was played, followed by bishop takes knight, doubling the pawns on the c-file, and then black played knight to e7. There was queen g4, queen c7, and then queen takes g7, rook g8, queen takes h7, followed by c takes d4. And this is actually one of the main lines in the French defence, believe it or not. It's pretty crazy, and straight away actually Stockfish needs to be a bit careful. For instance, if white now suddenly just plays c takes d4, then queen c3 is on the cards with check, and black will win the rook. So, first off though, Stockfish stops this threat and plays knight to e2, which protects the c3 square. And Leela straight away just takes a free pawn, d takes c3 is played. However, Stockfish seems to recognise straight away that they've got quite a nice position. Straight away, Stockfish throws this h-pawn up the board. We've seen AlphaZero do this, we've seen Leela do this. It looks as though Stockfish now does it because it's basically a passed pawn straight away. And if white can somehow manage to get this to the end of the board, they're going to do very well in the game. Leela though continues development. Knight to c6, the queen and the knight now hits e5, so Stockfish defends with f4. Leela develops once again with bishop d7. The queen drops back to d3, eyes up the c3 pawn, but Leela continues her development with castling queenside, connecting the two rooks on the 8th rank, which makes a lot of sense. But Stockfish doesn't care, plays h5, so pushes their passed pawn one step closer to queendom. Knight f5 is played by Leela though, and black look like they've got a very solid structure at the moment. I probably would prefer to play black in this position, but we'll see how Stockfish gets on. Rook b1 is played, makes a lot of sense, sends the rook to their open file, and Leela plays d4. The two knights protect d4, and this pawn does a great job of protecting c3. Stockfish though plays rook to g1, which makes a lot of sense, prepares the move g4, and Leela plays bishop to e8, unlocks the rook on the d-file, which now supports the d4 pawn, and maybe prepares some move like f6 at some point to unleash this bishop down this diagonal. But Stockfish's attack is quite fast now, or pawn storm I should say. g4 hits the knight on f5, and actually now we're getting to a very interesting variation because Leela ignores this and plays queen e7. So why does she ignore it? Well, if Stockfish now takes, let's say g takes f5, then rook takes g1 can be played, followed by knight takes g1. This looks okay, right? Looks like white's just won a piece. However, black can now play queen h4 with check. And this is where white gets into some problems, because after, let's say, king to d1, black can play f6. And the bishop is now unleashed to take on h5. And if we play like a move like bishop to e2, queen h1 looks very nice indeed, with moves like queen takes g1 coming. And the point of this move is, even after queen to g3, black has bishop takes h5, and if bishop takes, queen takes with check, king e1, black has queen takes f5. And okay, white's still a piece up, but black's got some major compensation for that piece. They've got two extra pawns and quite a open position for white's king. And the bishop on c1 isn't exactly great at this current moment in time. So certainly black has nice compensation. Saying that though, it's far easier to not take the knight. It was far easier for Stockfish to play g5, which is an incredibly strong move as well, and supports their h-pawn passing up the boards. a6 is played by Leela in the game. King f2 was played by Stockfish. Queen c5, and Stockfish plays h6. Again, the pawn is one step closer to becoming a queen. b5 is played. Knight g3, and there's a trade. Knight takes, king takes, and king to c7. And in this position, Stockfish played bishop to h3. Now I think the plan behind bishop h3 is maybe able to sacrifice the bishop on e6, removing this f7 pawn as a defender because it's got to recapture, and then white may be able to be free to push these two pawns up. So maybe that's what Stockfish's plan was in the correct position. So it makes sense why Leela played bishop to d7 here to protect e6, and Stockfish continued rook e1, and there was bishop c8, and now a4. So Stockfish trying to destroy the pawn structure for black. Black just pushes the pawn up though. It makes a lot more sense to push it rather than take and double their a pawn. And now Stockfish plays f5. So opening up the position. Finally this bishop will be able to breathe, maybe come to f4. The bishop also supports the important g5 square. And Leela's got a decision to make. There was probably two possible moves here. In the game, knight takes e5 was played. E takes f5 here was another possibility. And what probably would have happened is bishop takes and then bishop to e6, followed by captures and captures. And then white may be able to play g6. And after knight to e7, g7, knight to f5 with check, king f2. Black can sacrifice the knight for the two pawns. And it's probably anyone's game here. It's quite interesting. White's a piece up, but the king is incredibly open. I would prefer in a real game to play black here probably. So going back to the game though, Leela could have taken on f5, sorry. Instead she took on e5, knight takes e5 was played. This allows bishop f4 though, and I think this was a mistake from Leela. The knight is now pinned and attacked by the rook and the bishop. f6 defends of course, and the pawn on g5 is actually pinned. But if the king just moves, which is what Stockfish does, the threat is renewed of g takes f6, followed by bishop takes knight. So for this reason, the king gets unpinned. Queen g3 is played though, and now three pieces are attacking this knight. E takes f5 is played, and Stockfish plays h7, attacking the rook on g8, which moves to g7, and now bishop takes e5 is played by Stockfish, followed by pawn takes, and the rook captures, and the queen's attacked, which moves to c4 for Leela. But now it's allowed Stockfish to play g6. The threat is to play queen g5 and queen to f6, and the black king is in a lot of trouble, and the rooks are also separated. White's also got some powerful pawns, connected pass pawns here, which could win them the game. So king a7 was played to avoid this queen f6 check idea. But now Stockfish plays bishop to g2, gets their bishop on a good diagonal. Bishop b7 is played, and there's a trade of bishops. And Stockfish doubles their rooks, threatening to play moves like rook to e7 with check. To stop this, queen c7 is played, but now Stockfish actually comes up with an incredible move, a very brave move. They played rook to e7, sacrificing a rook. This is because once Leela takes is what happened. Rook takes e7, queen takes e7, so okay, white's just given up a whole rook, but for what? Well, white can now play the move g7, and white's going to get another queen. G8 or H8 are unstoppable, and frankly black's only compensation now is to try and get a queen of their own. So Leela does try, she plays d3. Stockfish gets a queen. d2 is played. Queen to f3 check. King c7, and now gets another queen, h8 queen. Stockfish now has 3 queens against a queen and a rook. And that's the reason I put the picture of Yu-Gi-Oh with the 3 queens as the thumbnail. So queen d6 check is played, the king goes to h3. The 3 queens are swiftly deleted, rook takes g8 is played. But now Stockfish probably has a winning position. Queen h7 is played, king b6, queen f2, king a5, queen takes f5 with check, king takes a4, and finally queen takes rook. The threat is queen to a2 will be mate because this queen cuts off the king. So Leela is forced to check, the king goes to g2, there's another check, the queen blocks, and we're pretty much out of checks. If queen takes d5, this just loses to queen takes. There's no way for black to get their queen. Even after a5, the king will just come to f3 and Stockfish will win. So after queen f to d5, there's king a3 by Leela. Queen takes c6, and this is pretty much game now. King b2, queen f3, and then Leela plays b3. followed by queen takes, the king goes to c1, the queen takes the other pawn, Leela gets a knight for the lols, and after queen a3, knight b2, queen a1 is checkmate, and Stockfish has played an amazing game. So yeah, that was quite an interesting game. The opening probably favoured white, to be honest, but it was very interesting and double-edged position, and Stockfish came out on top in this instance. I think the mistake was when Leela played that knight takes e5 move, if I can find it. Around here, maybe Leela should have just played e takes f5 and gone into this variation with bishop to e6 and just sacrifice a knight for the 2 pawns. This would probably have been better than what happened in the game. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my analysis. Please do drop a like, comment or subscribe if you did enjoy the video, and see you next time for another chess lecture.